Hi everyone. Thanks for joining in and thanks JP for setting this up. So today what we'll do is basically look at marketing cloud integrations and best practices, as well as we'll have a look on the platform in terms of how to go about carrying out that integrations. Uh, a quick intro. I'm not spending much time here, but basically I head the overall practice at Social Beat and have been a part of the ecosystem for 6 years now. And yeah, it's glad to join this particular call and thank you for allowing me to present and thank you for joining the session in terms of that we are having on integration. What we plan to cover, so basically what we want to do is today focus mainly on the integration and the uh, integration side of things, which is also an important part of the implementation integration of Marketing Cloud. So we'll cover with respect to what is integration, why do we need integration, then what is involved or what are the different methods of integrations in Marketing Cloud. Uh, Also, we'll touch base on how to identify which integration needs to be carried out. I mean, so amongst the different methods or different availability that is there, what are the different, how do you identify which integration depending on which use case or which system that you need to integrate with. Also, we'll touch base on what is custom integration and when do we do custom integration. I mean, what is the requirement around custom integration? Also look at certain risk involved during the integration and what is it that we need to do in terms of to mitigate that risk, avoid that risk. I want to share, I mean, we talk about like 2 to 3 customers in terms of case studies of what I have worked on, what are the challenges faced, and how to overcome that with respect to. Would like to share the experience and also would like to hear, I mean, from people if they have some specific, use cases that they want to, like maybe discuss for a short time. And then last, we'll do a Q&A in terms of any questions. I mean, happy to address those. So first and foremost, in terms of why integration and what is the integration that is there. So Marketing Cloud, as you're aware, I mean, Salesforce will go ahead, sell the license. Once the license is sold, it's like an empty box where you carry out the implementations in terms of activations of the channels, setup of the channels that is there. But at the same time, you need to, as I said, so it's like an empty box. Where does the data come from? I mean, where is it that the data resides? The data resides in all the legacy systems that the brands have or that you have. Data will reside in all your ERP, CRMs, your transactional systems in terms of tally, in terms of directly within a database. Say if you have an SQL server, third-party apps, payment gateways in terms of say e-commerce customers, or even with respect to means wherever you are maintaining the transactions, wherever you're having like say maybe the POS systems, the e-commerce websites, or say even the in-house built systems that are there. Now, basically, this needs to be integrated so that data flows into Marketing Cloud, comes into Marketing Cloud, and then basically using that data, you run your campaigns, you run your Marketing Cloud journeys, you run your overall standalone, uh, you know, campaigns, automations, messaging. Uh, all of those things basically are then executed, are run with respect to once that data is in into Marketing Cloud. So basically, we need to get that data from various sources into Marketing Cloud, as well as you will also have like where different systems store data in a different format. So your ERP will have a like completely different format compared to your payment gateway, compared to the legacy in-house apps that are there. So you also need that standardization once you're getting that data into Marketing Cloud. So therefore, I mean, integration is important, and during integration, it is very important where you set up a mechanism so that business systems talk to each other, as well as creating an overall data flow, which is like in a standardized format, so that from the various business systems, Marketing Cloud gets that data in one particular format, one kind of a format that is there, which then can be used with respect to, as we said, for campaigns, for journeys, so on and so forth. So that's where, I mean, that's the reason with respect to, integration is important, as well as, I mean, to, say, as I describe, I mean, from a client side, if you purchased Marketing Cloud, it's something where, uh, you've purchased it where you can, so that you can automate campaigns, automate journeys, automate your data flow that is there. You don't want that manual uploads in terms of CSVs or Excels where you just upload the list and basically execute campaigns. You want to make the best out of Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and that's where it is where integrations become very crucial and important in terms of getting the data from your legacy systems to your Marketing Cloud, and then use for executing of campaigns or execution of your journeys. So what are the different methods of integration that are there? So there are various methods, I mean, which we look at in terms of methods of integration. The first and foremost is, I mean, I want to touch base on MC connector. So basically what Salesforce has gone ahead and done is, uh, as they, say claim, or as they, maintain a definition that their platforms are, marketer friendly. They are more of like marketer friendly tools and platforms that are there, and not the tech friendly, I would not say tech friendly, but tech savvy platforms. So they, although they are tech savvy, but they are more from the marketer friendly side when it comes to development. So where because they don't want the marketers to write code, they don't want the marketers to write big applications. It's where they want it to work like drag and drop and simplify it. So what they have done is, basically, with respect to the Salesforce products, at least if you are a part of the Salesforce ecosystem, where your ERP, where your CRM is a Salesforce CRM, which you are connecting with Marketing Cloud, or even the other products. I mean, in terms of the CDPs, the Datorama, the Interaction Studio, or even with respect to Service Cloud. Basically, any ecosystem within the means, or any system within the Salesforce ecosystem, what they've done is they've done a pre-built, which is like where they've built a connector, and the connector is where basically it's like a middleware, but which is already pre-built. So you don't need to write the code. You don't need to sit and think with respect to what coding language to use or how do you build that application. You just need to configure that so that you can connect both the clouds. So in this case, if you see in the diagram, it refers to connecting Sales Cloud with respect to Marketing Cloud, where you can implement the Marketing Cloud Connect and connect both the clouds that are there. Now, so as said, it's like a pre-built connector. It's a pre-built application which is there, which involves, basically you just need to set up the connector or configure the connector that is there. Now, the configuration of the connector involves two things. One is with respect to, so as we see, I mean, I want to touch base on the steps. So just confirming, is the document visible?
It's visible, Kunal. It's
Yeah.
all good.
Perfect. So when it comes to implementing the connector, basically it's the configuration that you need to do at both ends. So one configuration is happens at the SFDC level, where on the SFDC side you do a certain steps, and secondly the second configuration happens at the Marketing Cloud side. Now, just to highlight the steps, typically what happens is, first is you set up your users in Marketing Cloud. So there are two types of users which you need to set up in terms of API user and a tracking based user. So you set up those users into Marketing Cloud. Once you do that, the second is you go to SFDC, that is your CRM or Service Cloud. In the CRM or Service Cloud, there are two packages which you need to install. So now this depends on, in terms of uh, which type of environment you're setting up. So say if you are at the initial stage where you're just connecting the clouds, but your development is still in progress in terms of SFDC, and also at the same time SFMC implementation is currently going on. You don't want where you connect to the live instance. You can use the sandbox instance and install the sandbox package that is there to see to this. Basically, with the sandbox environment also, you can test out So once you finish all the steps, you can still test out the connection between both the clouds. And then once you are ready with respect to all your overall setup, you can move that to production. Say if you don't want to, I mean, so if like it's a small volume of data, or if you are like confident in terms of whatever you have with respect to your data set and with respect to your SFDC setup is good to go into production directly, you can directly start with the production environment and install it on the production environment itself with respect to SFDC and SFMC. Then you need to carry out, so similarly to how we did set up users in Marketing Cloud. So this is where in Marketing Cloud you set up means you set up the users so that that handshake between SFDC and SFMC happens. Similarly, you need to set up users in SFDC as well. So basically, you need to set up that users of an App Exchange user and an App Exchange admin user. So users with basically these two permission sets you need to set up on SFDC and give those permissions in terms of uh, to those users on the SFDC where the permissions are assigned, so that that connection or that pipe is set up which connects SFDC and SFMC. Then once the users are set up on both the systems, I mean the users are in on SFDC, you need to basically create a custom app. So once you move to the settings, and from the settings you go to application in SFDC, basically you need to create a custom app of Marketing Cloud, and basically that will get reflected on your toolbar for SFDC, where you will see Marketing Cloud as also one of the options and application which you are connecting to. Post that, it's where you need to whitelist a certain IPs. So basically, once you see Marketing Cloud, there are certain IPs which are available in your Marketing Cloud instance. You need to whitelist those IPs on SFDC, and so that there is that proper connection and also the data flow that happens between both the clouds. Now, once you complete these steps on which we saw from 1 to 5 in this case, uh, these are all on SFDC. You again switch back to SFMC. So where what you do is once you come back to SFMC, you need to again check with respect to whether the two users. So as I mentioned previously, where the connector that is there is nothing but an API application which Salesforce has already pre-built. So once you are back into Marketing Cloud, you need to ensure that the administrator and the Marketing Cloud administrator roles that you normally define, they have the API user permissions in terms of the connection that is there. Once that is there, here you need to enter the Salesforce credentials that are there in terms of user credentials, and basically upgrade to the connected app. So this is like where it there is an already pre-installed app which is there, but once you are actually doing so, what happens is the connector also goes through a lot of iterations in the backend where Salesforce is optimizing that in terms of say fields that are available or the objects that are available or multiple things that they are doing from the backend. It's similar to what how our any Android or iOS mobile apps work, where at the back end, there are upgrades which are happening, and then every 15 days, every 1 month, or say maybe whatever the time frame is, you get an notification to update that. So here also you basically upgrade to the connected app, and there is a like an installation which happens, which picks up the latest code that is there, latest features that are there, and basically you set that up. Now, yes, I mean, pardon, but actually, I mean, when you are actually implementing, this is the back and forth which really happens, because you need to have your SFMC and your SFDC at the same time, and you need to have multiple screens open at the same time, have your alt tab skills to the maximum with respect to where you are switching between both the screens. So now from SFMC, we'll go to SFDC. And basically what we'll do is with respect to do this configuration with respect to setting up the objects and setting up the overall object permissions that are there, do that site verification which is required. So basically this is nothing but your say combining of your Visual Force page, which you create on SFDC, along with the Marketing Cloud instance, and basically you install that instance in terms of where there is a setup of the connector. So basically, once the users are set, once the permissions are given, once that update is done, basically you implement the connector, which will go ahead and connect both the clouds that are there. So here also you basically install that. There are two options of once you are installing the connector on SFDC, where you do an automatic setup where the system takes care of the overall setup that is there, and it's like an automated process. Whereas if you want to go step by step with respect to each particular process, and say maybe do some modifications to the configuration, then you do a manual setup. But normally, as a best practice and as a overall use case, what we have seen, it's typically the automatic setup that you follow. Once that is done, you enter your Marketing Cloud credentials here, so that the pipe now between SFDC and SFMC, from the SFMC and SFDC end, sorry, is also connected, and where both the systems start talking to each other in terms of SFDC to SFMC also, in terms of the data flow that happens. And then there is a lot of settings that you need to do, where certain settings in terms of tracking, in terms of overall reporting, how reporting will be carried out, which you need to enable in terms of the Marketing Cloud, overall tracking settings that are there, which you need to carry out. And once you follow the steps, overall, both your clouds will be connected. That is your SFDC and SFMC, and your data flow will start happening from SFDC to SFMC. So you can use your CRM data, your service data in terms of executing campaigns, executing journeys. Once that happens, at the last, you get a success message. So if you see here, this is the SFMC screen. So on the SFMC screen, as a part of the connection, you see like connected. So basically, this is where the connection between SFDC and SFMC has happened successfully, and both the clouds are connected, and data flow is happening between both the systems that is there. So these are the steps you need to follow, and basically to implement your connector. And once you implement your connector, basically both the clouds start talking to each other, and data flow is happening between both the clouds that is there. This is the first one in terms of integration. Then moving on, in terms of, say, if it's a non-Salesforce based system that is there, right? If it's a non-Salesforce based, say, ERP or a manual system that is there, which you're using, or say your in-house inbuilt system, you also have an option of doing, say, file-based integration that is there, where you're not doing an API-based real-time, integration, but it's just where you're importing the data from your legacy system. You are exporting that into Marketing Cloud, or importing it into so exporting it from your legacy system and importing it into Marketing Cloud, and basically then executing your campaigns. So this is more like a FTP based integration that happens. In this case, these are normally done with respect to when, as said, the legacy systems don't have an API based option, or don't have the SDK based options which are available, or if your use cases, so in terms of the campaigns that you run or the journeys that you run, are non-real time. So say for example, uh, in terms of I would take a use case of, say, a restaurant where, say, the billing happens in the POS system. There are maybe 100 visitors every day at the restaurant, and then at the end of the day, it is where the data from the POS needs to go into Marketing Cloud, and then next day. So, say you visit a restaurant today, you make a transaction. You are also part of that customer list, or say a first-time visitor list in the POS system, and now the restaurant basically runs a campaign which is maybe, say, tomorrow or maybe after 2 days for that particular visitor, in terms of like a feedback based campaign, or like a coupon based campaign to give discounts, where the impact is not real time. It's more of a promotional campaign which can be non real time, So here the data is not required immediately on Marketing Cloud. It can be where data can come, say, end of the day, once a day, or maybe say every 4 hours or every 6 hours, based on the update in the POS system. It can flow to Marketing Cloud. So then you don't require that development. You don't require that API-based integration. What you do is simply basically set up, do a data transfer via FTP, get the data onto Marketing Cloud FTP. And once that data comes into Marketing Cloud FTP, you design automations in Automation Studio, which basically brings your data into Marketing Cloud. So in terms of, as we are aware that with respect to Marketing Cloud, the Marketing Cloud comes in with a like a overall SFTP that is there. So Salesforce provides you with a overall SFTP that is there, which is dedicated SFTP for your particular account, which you can use for file transfer, data transfer with your Marketing Cloud. So I have used a test instance which I had for my test account, and you can use various apps. So like there is FileZilla, there are various other providers as well who help you to connect with the SFTP path. Here, what happens is, so once I have entered into my SFTP with respect to the credentials, I'm using FileZilla in terms of to access the Marketing Cloud FTP. Once that happens, basically here you see on the remote side on the right, and on the file name. Basically, this is the folder structure which typically Marketing Cloud follows. So there is a root directory, and the root directory has an export, import, a reports folder, and now it's with respect to a triggered automations as well. So you can set up the export, import, and report folder is like a predefined folders which are already set up, uh, where basically, so if you're exporting data out of Marketing Cloud, they will all reside in the export folder. If you're putting in data, like say into Marketing Cloud, they will all reside on the import folder. And then reports can be as a part of the reports folder. And if you have like any triggered data, which is used for automations or triggered based communications, that will all be a part of the triggered automations that is there. So basically what happens is the data resides in this particular folders, and then they take care of, so say data that is coming in from your legacy system or from your say website or from your ERP. Basically that will all reside in the import folder of Marketing Cloud. And basically once that happens, you will see like a file structure where a CSV which gets generated into the import folder. And then once the data is into the import folder, you go to Marketing Cloud. Basically, you go to Automation Studio. And then once you are into the Automation Studio, you set up an automation basically which imports that data from the FTP uh, into the basically Marketing Cloud. So it's where you are importing the file. So say however the data transfer is happening, let that be say hourly, let that be on a day-to-day basis, and depending on say if it's a file drop, or in this case it can be a scheduled. So you will have your schedule here. You will define your schedule in terms of say every day at maybe 12 o'clock in the night, or maybe say 2 o'clock in the night, where everything stops from a business perspective. That's your final data that is there, which needs to go into your Marketing Cloud. You will configure that schedule, your time with respect to start date of the automation, define the time zone, how frequently it is repeating in terms of frequently, hourly, daily, week, every weekday, weekly once. I mean, all of that options are there with respect to the repeat capabilities. Then what it does, so basically say in this case it will import the file because we want to import it into Marketing Cloud. So define the activity that you need to do. When you import the file, you'll also have to give a, so since it is coming into Marketing Cloud, you'll also have to define in terms of where that import needs to be stored. So you'll have to create a like an import definition. Basically what the import definition is will do is uh, at the scheduled time, whatever the schedule is, the automation will run. it will basically check the import folder, that is the FTP folder that we saw here. It will check the FTP folder with respect to an updated file. As soon as it finds an updated file into the import folder, basically it will then pick up the file and then import it into your data extension. So you will have to define a data extension also in Marketing Cloud where this data needs to be stored. So basically then once the file is found and once you define an import definition, it will basically transfer the file in terms of to the destination. So the third step here you see where it will find out that data extension where that data needs to be stored, and it will update the data that is there. Now, as we know, there are various methods of data update as well. So there are like three options where you want to do a complete refresh. So say every day is a new data for you, you can go ahead and do a complete refresh. Whether you want to only, so if you know that you are only getting incremental data in terms of, say today's data is like say about 100 records. Tomorrow you are getting an increment of say about another 100 records, which are completely fresh. You can do like an add only. But say for example, if you know that that data can also get updated or modified, and you don't want, means you want to modify the data that was imported on the previous day or the previous week, you can do an add update as well when you're defining the data extension. So basically here you define that data extension, you define where it needs to be stored, set up the automation. Once the automation is set, basically what it will do is it will run, it will pick up your file from the import folder, put it into a data extension, and basically then you can, once that data extension is populated, you can use that data extension for either your journey, for your campaigns, whatever activity that you need to carry out of Marketing Cloud. So this is also one more method of integration where you don't want to do like a full-fledged API-based integration. Then you can also carry out an API-based integration via the SFTP that is there. Third is the API-based integration. This is mainly with respect to when you want to do like a real-time integration with your website or with your legacy applications, and where you want a like a real-time data transfer. So say as soon as a transaction is done on a website, or as soon as somebody does an activity on the website in terms of say press the submit button, and then based on that action, you want a campaign to be executed or you want the journey to be executed. So then you will go about doing the API-based integrations that are there. Marketing Cloud comes with three kinds of APIs. So there is the SOAP API. This is mainly used for uh, overall in terms of your data and all of those activities that are there. Then comes your REST API. So this is more to do with respect to say your actual transactional data or actual customer data that is there. So all of those things, you can do via the REST API. Normally, I mean, it is you use REST API in terms of most of the use cases where you want to integrate. And third is the new feature. So this is the transactional API that is there. So this typically you use for mainly say fintech, banking customers, or anything to do with respect to financial institutions, where it is really important that the messaging that is there. So say you do a transaction on a banking app, and as soon as you do a transaction, that message should reach out to you in terms of whatever credit debit of your account, or say any transaction that you've done which involves a monetary value. It's important that that message goes out in the next 2 to 3 seconds to maximum 5 seconds, because I mean the user has that recollection capability and knows with respect to what's happened. So therefore uh, transactional API is typically used with respect to where the turnaround or the messaging is required really quickly. You can set up the transactional APIs that are there in terms of Marketing Cloud. Now, in this case, there are two things that happen when you need to do the integration with respect to the API base. So one is the application. So your website or your enterprise application, you need to modify your code, and you need to do some custom changes to your code where there is a payload which is got from, and also the API keys, which I'll show you how it is generated in Marketing Cloud. Basically, those need to be configured as a part of your code so that basically the two systems start talking, and you can integrate that or perform that integration with respect to Marketing Cloud. And in Marketing Cloud as well, you need to generate the API details. So where you need to build an application and provide the API details that are there, so that that can be implemented as a part of basically in terms of when you are doing the connection with respect to your source system that is there. So this is, I've come to setup. Under setup means the apps. So what type of integration I am carrying out, depending on that, I go to installed packages. From installed packages, basically I will go to like all packages and create a new app. So I will give the name. Once this is done, basically what happens is, if you see here, the package is created with respect to the package ID, with respect to the secret key, and in terms of the access configuration that is also there. Basically, you need to provide this in terms of the package ID and in terms of the secret key as a first level, which needs to be incorporated into the code so that basically the API start talking. And then you also need to set up a payload with respect to what fields you want to get from those particular systems into Marketing Cloud. You need to give those payload and that definition with respect to the fields so that those fields and data can be extracted into Marketing Cloud. And as well as in terms of once you define a data extension, so there is basically it also requires the destination. So in terms of where the data needs to be stored, in terms of, so overall also from an API based integration as well, the data is resided into Marketing Cloud. So once it comes into Marketing Cloud, there will be a data extension which will be formed. So you need to give that data extension key as well, which is passed in the code. And so that basically whatever data that is pushed in the payload as a part of the API integration, that comes and then resides into basically the Marketing Cloud data extension that is there. Pardon me, I think it's just taking some time. Okay, I think I will let this happen and I'll show you where the data extension key is generated. And basically then you give that key to basically the developer and he embeds that in the code so that that is included, and basically it gives the destination to your overall data which is being passed via the API.
So Kunal, in the meantime, it comes up. So I have a question here in the chat window. I tried to answer it to my best possible. So the question is about reconfiguring the MC connector. Let's suppose now we already have a CRM, Salesforce CRM connected to the Marketing Cloud, and we want to change it. What are the considerations that we need to take care of, or if there's any single place where we can get all the detailed steps, anything that you are aware of?
So say in terms of if you want to change it, I mean, so say by change, I mean, if your question is with respect to say, if your SFDC instance is changed, or say you have a new CRM instance, it's where you will have to repeat the steps. I mean, so, if that is the change, I mean, there is nothing that can be done in terms of, directly modifying a certain step, because I mean, say if there is an SFDC change, right, your org level will change, your org ID will change. So therefore you will have to perform all the steps, at again and do that connection again. But say, for example, it's where uh, SFDC, you've added a business unit, or say maybe you've configured your business unit for another business altogether separately. Once you've implemented, the MC connector for one of the instances, and now you want to add that, then it's where basically, so again, it's where you need to follow that steps for that particular business unit. So in its only thing is that changes is on the marketing cloud, a certain steps go away. But I mean, there is no way where we can take that one connection and directly modify it. It's where you need to perform the steps again with respect to SFDC and SFMC for that connection to happen.
Thanks, Kunal.
Yeah.
So I do see another question. Can a DE data extension be based on REST API?
A D is, yes, a D can be based. So it is. So even in a REST API, basically, as I said, the D is where the final data is stored. So even with respect to your API based communication, it is where the data gets stored in terms of finally it comes to the data extension, and that your data is stored in the data extension in the records field that is there. So the records get created even if the data is being transferred via the data API that is there. And the key that I was referring to, so if you see here, this external key, this is something which basically identifies each data extensions that are created in Marketing Cloud. So every data extension has a different external key that gets generated. So basically you need to pass this key as well, so that your data, once moving from API, it will come here and get stored on this particular data extension that is there. Sure. Moving back. So, I mean, this were basically in terms of how you carry out integration with respect to the API based setup that is there. Now, I mean, so this three in terms of MC connector, the FTP and the API cover the overall Marketing Cloud integrations that are there. Then there is also where you can integrate your app. So say if you have an Android based app or an iOS based app, and you want to use that for sending out push notifications as a part of your campaigns, as a part of your overall, MarTech stack or marketing journey, you can also integrate your app where you can deploy the SDK. So once you are defining the SDK in the app, say let that be Android or iOS, basically you need to define that code, and in that code pass in a certain parameters from Marketing Cloud, so that you can connect your Marketing Cloud to basically the app, let that be Android or iOS. And basically once that is connected, it is where you can use it for sending push notifications. In terms of the app integration, majority of the development or deployment that happens is at the SDK side. So Marketing Cloud, there is only one like simple configuration which you need to do, where say going to Marketing Cloud, you go to your mobile connect, you go to mobile push, and basically once you come to mobile push, you need to create an app. So you go to administration, you create an app. So you click here with respect to creating a new app. And once you do that, you see that there is an access token that gets generated. There is an app ID, app endpoint which gets generated. Basically, you need to pass all of this as a part of your SDK in iOS and Android. And there are a certain files which basically get generated on your SDK as well. So there is a APN related file which gets generated on iOS. There is an Android Google FCM key which gets generated on Google in terms of when you are writing your code on Firebase and developing your SDK on Firebase. Uh, you need to get those, I mean, from the iOS and the Android apps and enter here. And once you do that, then it's all pure play in terms of the SDK development, where you need to build your SDK, configure your SDK as per your requirements, and that integration will take place with respect to your app and Marketing Cloud that is there. And basically, then you will be able to use push notifications and send push notifications as a part of messaging, as a part of journeys that are there, and do various things with respect to your campaigns and notifications that are there. Moving on, so now, I mean, we saw basically the types of integrations that are there. Now just wanted to touch base on how do you identify which integration method. So, we saw the FTP based, there is the MC connector, and there is the API based. And if you have a mobile app, there is the SDK integration that is there. Now, MC connector, I mean, it's straightforward that yes, if it's a Salesforce product, you implement the MC connector and basically connect both the clouds so that you don't have to write the code or develop anything. But between API and FTP based, how do you identify it? So say you need to identify, as we saw, in terms of use cases, whether they are real time, whether they are non-real time, whether are there going to be any real time cases, then do an like API based integration. If it's a complete like non-real time use case and like complete legacy systems which just generates files, no API capabilities, you go about designing automations and doing the FTP based integrations. Uh, Also, with respect to, you decide based on how the team structure is for your client or for your organization as well. Do you have like a team of developers who can take care of that API heavy lifting, writing codes, developing codes, implementing SDKs, or it's like a more marketer friendly team, who prefers say the drag and drop or click based approach that is there. Then you decide on where you design more automations, more drag and drop based automations instead of doing the coding that is there. And also, as well as depending on the ease and flexibility of how your overall structure is, how your overall business is, you take a decision with respect to what integration method that you want to use. And then there is custom integration. Now, what is custom integration and when is custom integration required? Now, this is when, say, for example, your legacy system or your ERP or your CRM that you are using is a complete custom CRM that you've developed and made it in-house. It's an ingrown organization-based system that is there, which has like no API-based connection or no options of generating files. Then that's when you need to build something which is like a middleware. So middleware is nothing but like it will be an application. It will be like a middle layer between your custom application, your legacy systems, and the Salesforce Marketing Cloud or SFDC, which will do the talking and the heavy lifting. So basically, data will be transferred from your legacy systems to your middleware. Then the middleware will convert that data in the format which is working with respect to an SFDC or SFMC, and then it will push the data into the Salesforce systems that is there. So your middleware is kind of an entire application in itself, which you need to write, which you need to code, which you need to, so basically it involves the entire application built on a particular technology. So you need to identify whether you want to use Java, you want to use Python, you want to use .NET, you want to use SQL base. I mean, so define all of that, design your system, build that system which does the talking, which does the data handshake between your legacy system and Marketing Cloud. And then basically once you develop that, it will start doing the talking between both your legacy systems and your overall Marketing Cloud or any Salesforce product that is there. When is it required? As said, depending on your legacy systems, depending on how old they are or what capabilities they have. Is it recommended? No. I mean, that's because it takes out the whole perspective of Marketing Cloud, whole use case of Marketing Cloud, the ease of Marketing Cloud, and ease of overall what Salesforce works on with respect to the ease that it wants to provide marketers. So yes, definitely not recommended, but are people doing it? Yes, there are. I mean, organizations which are doing it, where they're building a, like a custom integration, a custom middleware, and then using that for the data transfer between the legacy system and Marketing Cloud as well. These are some do's and don'ts and risk which I want to touch base on. So certain things which we need to take care. So definitely identify what type of integration is required, and then take a decision with respect to doing that correct integration. Document your overall approach and solution. So first, spend some time in terms of documenting that, in terms of what approach you want to take, what is the overall solution looking like. Go through that number of iterations of that documentation process. uh, Once the solution is built, test the solution. So spend some time in terms of testing it end to end. So do your unit testing, do your UAT testing, test out certain use cases in terms of uh, which you think takes care of your regression testing and all of those testing aspects. Uh, Again, don't build a custom solution unless and until if absolutely required. Otherwise, don't build it. Use the methods which are provided by Salesforce, and see to it that Marketing Cloud is used for Marketing Cloud sense, and not like a data churning or a business flow operation. It's mainly Marketing Cloud is for your communication, for your marketing sense, journeys, campaigns, etc. that you want to do out of Marketing Cloud. Uh, I would spend like 5 minutes on case studies which I want to discuss. So one was an F&B brand. So it was again a legacy brand that we had, and where, as said, that's where we did a like a overall custom integration for them, where we built a like a custom middleware which used to do the talking with their legacy POS system as well as website as well as their legacy ERP that they had built, and basically then integrated that. So middleware used to talk with those legacy systems, convert that data into like Marketing Cloud format, and then push the data into Marketing Cloud. And then we used to do that, use that in terms of for campaign journeys. But again, the stress that was there with respect to getting the data in the right format, doing that development, identifying the technology developers. I mean, it was like an end to end altogether a project in itself, in addition to the Marketing Cloud implementation and integration. And finally what we saw was like definitely not a scalable system that is there, and not something which typically worked out. I mean, not that it really worked out in a good way for the brand as well. uh, the fintech brand, this was a good one where the brand extensively used all the features of Marketing Cloud. So where they even use the MC connector for getting their SFDC and SFMC talking. They also had a real-time use case where they were looking at like transactional API implemented, so that they had that real-time messaging. They also had that normal REST API integration with respect to the website. They also had their app which they integrated and they used to use for push notifications. And they also had a certain say smaller systems which took care of their service providers, their dealers that were there, where they did those small automations which used to pick up the data in terms of a file format and push it into Marketing Cloud. This was end to end where we used everything. uh, I would say very interesting, definitely challenging, but it was interesting because all the capabilities of Marketing Cloud were used, and they were used to the best limit that is there. So I would say an amazing, say I would say approach as well as overall as implementers, means we had a good experience implementing that solution that is there. And again, it is scalable. That brand is in fact still using it. I mean, in fact, using the overall setup for like the last 3 years now with respect to with seamlessly using all the integrations and overall Marketing Cloud, and they are one of the happy Salesforce customers that is there. And I guess last is a bank. This I just wanted to touch base on, where how effectively they use. So they were on SFDC and SFMC. And basically they just implemented the connector. So they didn't want the website, or they didn't want like any other integrations to happen. They were just seamlessly using the actual MC connector and SFDC and SFMC, where it was like a simple integration, but how seamlessly they used the overall functionality features in terms of the data flow, and in terms of as well as executing campaigns, and as well as overall managing their customer relationship and services in terms of support, etc., via using SFDC and SFMC. So yeah, I mean, just wanted to share this in terms of, three different use cases, three different industries, as well as three different types of integrations carried out in terms of three different ways that are there. Yep, I think we can open it for questions. Happy to take those in terms of any questions.
Thanks for sharing all your insights, Kunal, and the real-time use cases that you have shared. Thanks for that. And I'm looking at the questions here. What are the limitations, like the number of API calls when it comes to the Marketing Cloud Connect? And let's say the journey is using the Salesforce data entry, and is there any limitations on the number of records that are coming in? I know there's a limitation on the contact count, but with respect to the API count, is there any limit?
So there is a limit on the API count as well. I mean, I don't have that number handy. I can definitely, share it on chat or share it on a post. But in terms of that limitation that is there is really high. I mean, post you cross like 1 million transactions. I mean, that's where the limitation starts happening, and then basically your transactions being split into means, like say multiple transactions or multiple API calls that are there, and you see a lag there. But it can easily handle like millions and millions of transactions, and post that there is a limitation. I don't have an exact number, but I can definitely pull that number and share it. That is there.
Sure, Kunal. Thank you. And for somebody who is working on the mobile push app and trying to test it, test the campaigns, do you have any recommendation for any app that we can do?
I think if I get the question correctly, in terms of how do you go about testing it, so it's pretty much where, so it's like you can install your or connect your Android app, you can install your connect your iOS app as well, and once you connect those, I mean, it's where the data flow starts happening. Uh, it's where, say you will do the testing with respect to uh, whether one your push notifications are working. So you will set up a push notification on Marketing Cloud, and then do that testing with respect to the send to see whether the users are receiving it. Or you will also do the like a overall regression testing as well. So all of those, I mean, pretty much can be managed via Marketing Cloud itself. Yes, in terms of multi-device, that's something where you can do, it's more of a like a, so not a Marketing Cloud thing, but it's more of a like a push notification testing that I think you are referring to. For that, I mean, there are various external, I think, apps. So say for example, for email, like how we use Litmus, which gives you like an entire options of like different Windows, different iOS devices, etc., so on and so forth. Similarly, for mobile apps, I mean, there is again a similar platform which basically gives you all those options in terms of various Android devices, various iOS devices, various Windows devices, etc., where you can test how your push notification is working. So it's more of a like a SDK feature that is there, and not a like a Marketing Cloud feature that is there. But again, there are various apps to do that multi-level testing if you are referring to that.
I hope that clears. If you still have any questions, please post it in the chat window. I think those are all the questions. And the last one, which one is better, the SOAP API or the REST API? This is a common question. So if you want to throw more light on that, we can take that, or we can share details in the Slack channel after that.
Yeah, I think overall, I mean, in a nutshell, for your transactional, for your customer data, it's to do with respect to where REST API will be used. For activities which are not related to your customer data or your, say transactional data and not related to the marketing campaigns, but say additional data or maybe, all of those things, it's where you use the SOAP API. But the most preferred is, I mean, REST, because I mean, again, it's like a seamless integration that is there, and it's like a faster way to get your data transferred between, any two systems that you are referring to. Yeah, I think we can share links with respect to specific on REST and SOAP APIs, which highlights more details.
Sure, Kunal. So I think those are all the questions that we have. And thanks for the wonderful session, and thanks for sharing all the real-time use cases and all the resources. And thanks everyone for joining us today. We will be sharing the recording and the other resources as well. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel Trailblazing Together, so you will get notified whenever the recording is uploaded. And the next session is on March 1st by Asia. That's on email studio, email campaigns. And that's also a great topic. So I'm also looking forward to it. Make sure that you have registered to that event as well. I'll be posting more sessions soon. And I hope to see you again in the next event. Thank you. And thanks, Kunal.
Yeah.